Hey, hey. Welcome to Mixing Night. It's Q&A with Ken Lewis, your weekly live stream during the quarantine, broadcasting every Wednesday night from 8 p.m. New York City time, ground zero of the worldwide pandemic. Please stay inside. Listen, if you have to go outside, things are opening back up. Just mask up. It's that simple. Just mask up. Hey, if you don't know me, my name is Ken Lewis. I am credited on 99 gold certified records, 57 Grammy nominations as a producer, mixer, engineer, songwriter, musician, vocalist, and arranger. Work hasn't slowed down during the apocalypse for me at all. It did for about 2 weeks. The pause button kind of got hit, and then everybody kind of, I don't know, figured shit out and started getting back to work, and I'm just as busy as I ever was. So I'm going to try and keep this live stream going during the quarantine as much as I can. Hopefully I'll see you guys every week. So lately I've been super busy. I have 3 mixes on the new BTS album, Map of the Soul 7, including the lead single, which is Interlude Shadow. It's about 70 million YouTube streams right now, so that's doing well for me. And that brings my BTS total mixes up to about 35. I'm one half of the production team Catalyst. Brent Colatalo is my production partner. We've been producers forever together. And right now we're producing Harlore, Talk up in Toronto. Man, we worked on a killer Talk song this week. Grizzly Adams, we have a great single coming out with him soon called Too Close to Fire. I think that's dropping in June. If you guys didn't see the Grizzly answer on a previous broadcast, check it out. I think it was around April 15th. He broke down what should indie artists do to get themselves out in the marketplace. So find that one, or maybe the booth can post it up, a link to that broadcast. He really gave a great answer. Speaking of great answers, tonight we have Ann Mincieli on the program. Ann is... I've known Ann since the 90s. She started as an assistant at Quad. She's basically like Alicia Keys' right arm now, and has been since like the 90s. It's really incredible. So she's going to be joining the broadcast tonight and answering a couple questions for you guys. It's going to be killer. What else have I got going on? Recent work also includes Taylor Swift, Mark Ronson, Juice WRLD, Dua Lipa, Rick Ross, so many others. I'm currently also mixing the new Layla Blue album for Island Records. Man, watch out for her. She's going to be a killer. So, listen, while we're all stuck inside during the quarantine, I want to do a live Q&A, show you guys some cool stuff, maybe help you solve that problem that you can't get past, and, maybe I can give you guys back some of my knowledge from the last 28 years of record making, and I'm still going strong, thankfully. Tonight's show is killer. I'm going to be showing you a bunch of stuff for the mix bus. I would call it pre-mastering, not mastering. I get a ton of questions about mastering or finishing the mix bus. This is going to be somewhere in between that. So maybe 20, 30 minutes from now, I'm going to get to that stuff pretty deep. Sprint mix tonight. I'm super excited about this one. I've done it once before, but it's been a while. Sugar Jesus, Temptation. It's a big pop EDM track, super challenge. It's really hard. It's really hard to mix in 10 minutes, but I'm going to do that at the end of the broadcast, so stick around for that. Also, story time with Ken, speaking of Ann Mincieli, is going to be about creating the big drums on Alicia Keys' Girl on Fire. So I created the big drums. Ann was the one that gave me a call on that. Thank you, Ann. And I'm going to kind of break down how I did that on story time tonight, later in the broadcast. So listen, Mixing Night is a new YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. It really super helps. And we're really kicking ass right now. These broadcasts have been really growing every week. The chat roll has been super engaged. I've just been super stoked with the way everybody's kind of been responding. And also, it's really been great to see on the chat roll how respectful everybody is. You know, we're getting some trolls. You always get the trolls. There's nothing you can do about the trolls except ignore them. So thank you for ignoring the trolls. I appreciate it. Tonight's giveaway is going to be Plugin Alliance Mega Bundle. So I love the Plugin Alliance stuff. Quick story. So Dirk Ulrich is the one that owns Plugin Alliance Brainworks, and the first time I ever met him was at a New York AES show, and he was this brand new tiny little booth. This is ages ago. and he had one amazing equalizer set out, which was like a hardware version of the BX Digital. And he was showing off his new plugin, the BX Digital, and it was the first equalizer plugin that did middle side control. And before that, the only place that you could get middle side control on an equalizer was at a mastering house, or to have one custom built for you. So like mix engineers couldn't do that kind of stuff. So we were always envious of the mastering guys. Then Dirk comes along and he builds the it's the BX Digital is the EQ. Now it's on V3. So I see Dirk at AES, and he's in this tiny little booth, and I walk over and strike up a conversation with him, and he's showing me the plugin and the outward, and I just fell in love with it. And literally since that day, I have been using that plugin, and all of the Brainwork stuff is very much in my repertoire as a mixer and creator. Let's see what else is going on. I'm going to be giving away tonight some Audio School Online tutorials. So for those of you who don't know, I have a school. Audioschoolonline.com is my school. And I think when I set up Audio School Online, the main thing is I'm not trying to show you like the I've never done anything in my life, how do I get started type stuff. I'm really trying to show you more of the I don't understand these higher level things. I need the real deal gaps to be filled in, and I need somebody that I really trust teaching me those techniques, and that's Audio School Online. So check it out. I'm going to be giving away maybe 2 or 3 tutorials on the chat roll tonight. I'm just going to reach over to the chat roll at some point, and I'm just going to type over winner, and whoever was the previous post before me on the chat roll, I'm going to call out their name, and hopefully we can track them down and get them a tutorial. So be active on the chat roll, be respectful, and maybe you'll win something tonight along with that plugin alliance thing. So but can we talk about eyebrows for a second? I am scared to death to cut mine, because I think they've got to be like 3 fucking inches long, and my hair is winning the Guinness Book of World Records for fastest hair growing right now, and obviously I can't get it cut. So it's been an interesting time lately for grooming and just kind of letting everything go. I don't know if anybody are UFC fans, but I'm a big UFC fan, and it's been really great to see sports coming back in any capacity. UFC 249 was awesome, and this past week, I think, was it Overeem Harris fought, and that was the main card, and that was a great, all the fights, even the undercards, were quality entertainment when there's nothing else. And I mean, that's probably my sport anyway. I really like the UFC. What else is going on? Let's dig into some Q&A. I got a ton of stuff to go through tonight. I'm going to try and get to as many questions as I possibly can. We'll see how good I am with that. All right. This is a group question from Kevin Blau, Matt, Glow, and EJ. It's 3 questions. How did you get started? What college or university did you attend? What change made the biggest difference in your career? And how did you network to meet the right people? So I graduated Berklee College of Music in 1991. Moved to New York City in May of 93. Almost 17 years to the day. Is that right? No, 27 years to the day. I can't even do math today. Wow, holy shit. May 23rd, I moved to New York City, 1993. That was the day. Changed everything. Let's see. So what change was the biggest difference in your career is the location. I moved. I was in Cincinnati, Ohio. There was not anything going on in Cincinnati, Ohio. I had to put myself where the action was. Now, in the age of coronavirus and COVID, who knows if we're ever going to be able to get back to working together again, but I'm assuming at some point we will. And I always think, even in the age of the internet and even in the social distancing age, people working in the same room together when that's possible is the strongest way to make great music and great connections. And so, location matters. Get to the right people and get to the right places. Jacob asks, hey, Ken, what is the most helpful tip you got when you were first trying to get into the music industry? I had to think on this, and I came up with an interesting one. Tony Maserati, who I hope all of you know who Tony Maserati is. He's a brilliant mix engineer and taught me a lot. I asked Tony Maserati, like in 1993, maybe 94, and he was like the king of New York at the time, and I was this new assistant and assisting for him whenever I possibly could. And I said, Tony, you know, how do you keep from being pigeonholed in this industry? And he gave me probably an answer that may have changed the course of my career. He said, oh, don't worry about it. You're totally going to get pigeonholed. There's really nothing you can do about it. You know, just accept it and, you know, try and work around it as much as possible. And I was just kind of looking, I'm sure he was looking at me like, I know you don't believe this, but trust me, you're going to get pigeonholed and there's nothing you can do. And I'm like, so I think it's quite possible that for the entire rest of my career, I've been battling against being pigeonholed, because I think there's always a new adventure and a new skill and a new record to be made, and I've worn so many different hats. So haha, Tony, you were wrong, and I really appreciate you giving me that fire, because without that reality check, I don't know, I may have thought it was too easy, and this business is definitely not too easy. Okay, I'm gonna start showing some stuff. The first thing is going to be, okay. Lucas asks, hey Ken, what do you do before starting to mix a track? I'm going to show you a few things. Some are esoteric, like, or some are like scripted things. This is the way I prep a session. And some are like more mental, like I want to make sure that I have enough time carved out of my day that I can focus on what I want to work on, without distractions and shit like that. At least for a while, you know. So I think that's kind of an issue for me. I always need a rough mix, because having a rough mix gives you confidence that you're not missing any parts that they forgot to send when you compare the rough mix to your final. And also, usually there's something about the rough mix that just feels magical, that you didn't quite capture 70-80% into the main mix. And the rough can inform you of like little things like, oh, the shaker was just perfect in that. So the technical things, I usually start with my 808 to the very top, or my loops if I'm rocking drum loops. And then drums, heaviest to lightest. So kick, snare, clap, snap, hats, tambourines, percussion usually ends it. And then after all the drums and percussion, it would go, there's no bass on this. The bass is the 808. I would go bass after drums, and then usually after that, the most important things. Saw melody is the main driver of this, so here's all the melody instruments, and then after the melody instruments would be the sound effects, and then the vocals. And I always put my lead vocals in red, my backing vocals in pink. And I color code accordingly. So this isn't very color coded, Jesus, Ken. But usually I have a system and I color code it all, and I try and have as little to look at as possible. I only put up what I need, so that I'm not distracted by a whole bunch of shit on the screen that really doesn't mean much to me and doesn't allow me to do my job. So hopefully that's some good tips for you. Okay, Cortland Delva asks, hey Ken, what are the basics on using an EQ on vocals? Cortland, you are probably one of 50 people who generally asked a somewhat similar question. So, okay, you ask the basics. So I'm going to back up to the very basics. I think about vocal EQ in 3 different ways. So let me fire this up. Hang on.
Live all night, man. In the club, yeah, you know me, I'm the hype man. I'm the hype man.
Okay, so I got Vonnie Hype Man here. And this is the perfect song to demonstrate this, because I looked at the EQ setting that I used during the mix, and it is all of these things. So vocal EQ, I try to break up into 3 general regions: the low frequency, mid-range, and high frequency. The low frequency you can think of as controlling the size of the vocal, how big that overall vocal sounds. But the low frequency can also lead towards muddiness and tubbiness and just being really messy. And also sometimes you have plosives on the sub that come through really loud on the sub. So the low end, think of size. The mid-range EQ on a vocal, think of enunciation and presence. So how clearly you can understand what they're saying happens a lot in the mid-range. But also the mid-range has a lot to do with when you have very piercing sounds or very harsh sounds, usually it's coming from that mid to upper mid. And finally, the top end, you have the high frequency, which gives you either clarity or, if you have like your S's and sibilances are too harsh, it can be, really beautiful, airy, clarity vocals, or they can be really harsh. It all depends on how you can control things. So these ranges, you can't think about them as one thing, because you think about it as one thing and you start turning things and it's the other thing. You have to always know what you're listening for and how to control it. So with Vonnie, let me show you all of these things. I'm going to solo, no effects.
Live all night, man. In the club, yeah, you know me, I'm the hype man. I'm the hype man, you know I'm the hype man. I'm the hype man, yeah, I'm the hype man.
Okay, so exactly what I said. I'm going to show you. These two bands right here go towards size, 200 hertz and 100 hertz. Really, they're kind of in the same general low frequency range. And I'll pull these down and I'll pull them back up, and you can hear his thin vocal just get fatter and bigger.
Live all night, man. In the club, yeah, you know me, I'm the hype man. I'm the hype man, you know I'm the hype man. I'm the hype man, yeah, I'm the hype man. I'm going live.
But you hear too much and it gets muddy. So everything is a balance. Okay, the mid-range, we're looking at 5K. That's upper mid-range, but it's definitely bringing out the enunciation clarity.
Live all night, man. In the club, yeah, you know me, I'm the hype man. I'm the hype man, you know I'm the hype man. I'm the hype man, yeah. Live all night, man. In the club, yeah.
And finally, the clarity on top.
Live all night, man. In the club, yeah, you know me, I'm the hype man. I'm the hype man, you know I'm the hype man. I'm the hype man, yeah, I'm the hype.
So I'm opening up 12K there, which is it's just air. But the problem is sometimes that there's a lot of sibilance in that air. So when you're really boosting the hell out of high frequencies on an EQ or on a vocal, make sure that you're controlling the sibilance afterwards. I probably have a de-esser after this. I do, immediately after. So first thing I'm doing when I'm boosting those highs is being mindful to not let them get out of control when I'm hitting those hard S's and T's. Okay, so that's vocal EQ for you. I hope that helps. All right, this is two guys asked the same question. Liam Hickey and Lionel ask, hey Ken, I've always sent my lead vocal to a stereo bus. I'm not going to show this, but oh yeah, I can. Hey Ken, I've always sent my lead vocal to a stereo bus, but today I accidentally sent it to a mono bus and it sounded so much better. Have I been mixing wrong? Liam, I'll get to that in a moment. And Lionel asks, is creating buses necessary or just a time saver? Okay, so I'm going to show you some busing stuff. Liam, you haven't been doing it wrong. It's tough to be wrong. It's just maybe not the most effective way. So busing. I don't usually bus my lead vocals to an aux. I usually put the plugins on my lead vocals. Same with my background vocals, but if I want to bus my background vocals to an aux so that I can control all of them together. So say these four I want to control with one bus. So I don't know who I'm going to lose and who I'm going to be here. So I'm going to create one stereo aux input, and I'm going to assign an input to it. 21. I'm going to take these, and I'm going to take these off of the mix bus, which is A1 and 2, so they will no longer be feeding the mix bus, and they're only going to aux 7 now. So these four are going here and no place else. And then after this, then they go to the mix bus. So now I can control the level of all four of these right here.
All night, man. In the club, yeah, you know me, I'm the hype man, you know I'm the hype man, yeah, I'm the hype man.
Okay, so that allows me to do a few things. I can add plugins, EQ, compression. I can feed this to effects straight from here. I don't even know what that effect was, but let me find something that's more reverby. You see what? Okay, so one more time for those that don't know. These 4 I'm sending to bus 21 and 22, so they are leaving the mix bus. And they're going to be picked up by aux 7 here, and then aux 7 is going to feed them into the mix bus. That's how that shit works. The lead vocal, you don't really need to bus to another track unless you're really tight on signal processing. But my lead vocals, as you can see, I'm doing all of my processing on the channel itself. All of my vocals I process on the channel itself. And then I'll bus to combine and add reverb and maybe automate overall reverb levels and things like that. All right, where am I at? Mario asks, as someone who is a complete beginner at producing music, I have difficulty vocalizing when I am hearing what I am hearing in my head. It's tough to verbalize what and which effects and sounds I want. Any advice to overcome this obstacle? Mario, I actually do. I mentioned my school earlier. So at audioschoolonline.com, I've created 2 tutorials that are called Keyboard for Beat Makers. And it's basically what I do is I show you how to learn the fastest way to play keyboard to get up and running and being able to incorporate music into your beats and know what you're doing. They're actually fascinating tutorials. I've never seen anybody else put one out, and I think I'll just give one away. There. Whoever, oh, Christine Kern didn't, she already has that. So, Rosso, you just won a keyboard for beat makers. Sorry, Christine, you already have it. Good to see you, Christine, by the way. For those that don't know, Christine Kern, Christine, the producer, friend of the show, and awesome NYC producer. She was assistant here for 3 years and did amazing work here and then moved on and is carving her own name now. Okay, Mike asks, Ken, what track layers do you tend to build a song around? Mike, I've talked about this in other broadcasts a lot. When I'm building a song, or me and Brent are working on building a song, we're always looking for the signature. That thing that you hear one time, whatever that is, can be anything, a vocal, a lyric, a sound, a melody, that signature, and whatever, and we're building the song and the production around the lyric and the song and the signature, and that's the main thing. Okay. Todd Roach asks, hey Ken, when producing, when do you know when to stop adding sounds? I often find myself trying to add too much so it sounds detailed and complex. You are not alone. Todd, you are definitely not alone. Okay. You should play the What Can You Mute game. And the What Can You Mute game is basically when you're so far along in your production that you're either mixing or you've got a good rough mix, or you're maybe during the mix. Me and Brent usually do this during the mix as we're producing. We'll play the What Can You Mute game, say you'll loop the chorus, and you'll just mute one thing at a time. And you'll just decide, like, is it better or worse, better or worse, better or worse? And if it's better, then you leave it out. And if it's worse, you leave it in. So play the What Can You Mute game, and I think you'll find that you add so many things as you go that once you hear everything really balanced in a mix, they're not that important, so it's not that big of a deal. So, hey, shout out to the chat roll right now. You guys are active. I can see you out of the corner of my eye, and that thing is just flipping, so I know... I know you guys are there. I'm trying to read it as much as I can. Good to see you all. And from the chat roll, Mike Heebs asks, hey Ken, why choose a mono aux or a stereo aux with vocals? Well, if it's a lead vocal, it's probably a mono track. And you don't need a stereo aux. You can send from that to stereo effects. So a lot of you guys put your reverbs and stuff on your actual channel. I don't do that. I set up reverb sends or aux sends, effects sends, which are here, and I have all of my effects returns down here. So bus 1 and 2 is a doubler, 3 and 4 is an R verb. 5 and 6 is a delay. Bus 7 and 8 is a H verb. And you can see these are all stereo, but you can see where I'm using them with these vocals as well. And so I usually just figure, I like to think in terms of mono and stereo just personally. So if I'm dealing with a mono vocal, I want to see one fader and one channel. It's just kind of my thing. All right. Maybe also from the chat roll. Wow, you guys are lighting the chat roll up tonight. From RIP Doc Holiday, would you recommend a U87 AI microphone? I haven't used a U87 in years, but they're like a staple at every major studio. The 87s are super reliable. But also, I can highly recommend the Studio Projects T3 is like a super budget version of the U87. And if you want to go a little higher end than the 87, I have a Manley Reference C black cardioid tube microphone that's godlike. And the C800, of course, is the king. Let's see. I hope I answered that. I forget what the question was. Okay. Back to this. Samson Rolls asks, "Hey Ken, how do you gain longevity in this industry where you can finally feel free to pursue your passions?" Oh Samson, oh Samson, oh Samson. I will let you know when I get there. You know, I'm lucky. I've done well. I've gotten a lot of great credits. I've worked on a lot of great albums. I've made a lot of money, and I've invested some of that well. But it's still wake up and work every single day, 7 days a week. I would like to slow down, but I still have shit to accomplish. So doesn't feel like I'm slowing down anytime soon. Okay, Kelton asks, "Hey Ken, how do you find people who will help you in your music career when you feel like you have nobody there behind your back?" Find a team. It's hard. It took me years and years and years to find the right team. But I would say test the waters and just try and collaborate with a whole bunch of people. And eventually you're going to collaborate with that one person that you're like, wow, this all just clicked. This felt so natural, and we just really make great music together. And then you probably just found either your partner or one of your creative partners, and that can be a really great creative outlet for you guys. So I would encourage you guys to collaborate and realize that collaboration is a two-way street. You don't get all of your ideas and they don't get all of theirs. Okay, Joel's asks, "Hey Ken, what's the best way to maintain the sounds going into your head? I get music ideas in my head all the time, but I never quite know the best way to save it for when I get it to my computer." iPhone. The voice memos on my phone are absolutely filled with song ideas for forever. Every writer I know, their iPhone looks exactly the same. Voice memos and writing memos, and like, this is just your capture ideas device. Take pictures of stuff that inspire you or videos of stuff that inspire you and tag them. And the other most important thing that any songwriter should tell you is label your clips well, because 6 months from now when you're going through that shit, you're really going to wish that you had labeled all of your individual sound clips with the idea that struck you in the moment, because 6 months from now that might come back and really be special. Okay. Johnny, and here's a triple question. Johnny, Dice, Suzuki, and Nathan all ask, when doing subtractive EQ, how much should one subtract? What is your thought process when an instance of a sampled string instrument has some sort of harmonic ring that won't go away? And can you give me some tips for better vocal cleanup to make it sound really good? Okay, so I'm showing a lot of stuff tonight, so I'm not going to show this because I literally this week just put out a YouTube video on the Mixing Night YouTube channel, which is this channel, called How to Handle Harsh Frequencies with Vocals, something like that. So with the strings question, you clean up strings the exact same way you clean up vocals. So anybody who wants an answer in depth to that question, more than a 5-second answer, like a 10-minute tutorial, check that out. It's on the Mixing Night YouTube channel now. And please, if you get anything from it, like the video, subscribe, set your notifications. Okay. Thomas Murray asks, hey Ken, big fan here. Man, I feel like I'm always falling at the last hurdle. My question is on the mix bus. What secret sauce are you using there that is, and what are your go-to plugins on the mix bus? Okay, so I'm going to get into showing you guys pre-mastering on the mix bus now. I am not showing you mastering. I'm showing you pre-mastering. So this probably the number one general question that I get asked constantly is, I'm going to be pulling this up while I'm talking to you. The number one the question I get asked constantly is about finishing the mix bus, about making my mixes loud enough for the radio or loud enough to send out, or, you know, all of those types of missions. How do you accomplish this? You know, honestly, I'm about to show you that it's a lot simpler than you might think that it is. And also, in some ways, it's a lot harder because it actually, using the finishing plugins like Ozone and L2 and things like that, your mix has to be pretty good in order for them to do their best job. Uh-oh, crash. So let's hope Pro Tools doesn't keep crashing on me. All right, so before I go to this example, I'm going to go back to the chat roll and answer another question or so while Pro Tools is booting up. Hans Groover asks, do you think a good vocal sound always looks different in a different frequency spectrum analyzer? Hans, I would not have the first idea what to tell you because I don't think I ever look at a frequency analyzer, like ever. I don't care what it's telling me. I'm interested in music and melodies and notes and rhythms and those types of, you know, things interacting together. And I genuinely try and keep my brain away from the I don't think in frequencies and ratios and numbers. I try and keep the technical side of my brain completely shut off. And I encourage you, like, it's harder early on because, yeah, you got to learn all your skill sets. But after you've learned your skill sets, you try and turn off the why as much as possible. And you just go to the do. And you have the song guide you to what you need. Okay, one more from the chat. Okay. Cat FA asks, hey Ken, what is it like mixing songs where you don't understand the words? Do you get it translated before you mix it? Nope. I just mix it. I mean, I'm really lucky that I work in a ton in K-pop. I've mixed like 35 songs for BTS now, and a bunch for Japan and Hong Kong and Taiwan and China and you know, all over the world, and you know, French and German and all sorts of different languages. I treat it exactly the same as I would treat a US vocal. Some languages are a little bit different. The S's and T's can be a little bit harsher and you got to control them a little bit differently, but really I think it's minor alterations that if you're good at mixing vocals to begin with and you use your ears, that you just try and do what you would do on a vocal that you would understand, and you're probably going to be just fine. Okay, on to the pre-mastering. Let's hope this is working. So, okay, so I get a ton of questions. Did I queue a bunch of them up? I can't remember, so I get a ton of questions about, you know, finishing mix bus. How do I get it loud enough? What is loud enough? What's the target RMS? I know the feeling. I was there once too. So it's not quite the mystery that you think. I have 7 plugins, six. I have 6 plugins here set up that I'm going to basically do the exact same thing very quickly for you. So, and then compare the end results in real time so that you can hear what I'm doing. All I'm doing is I'm taking my mix and I'm boosting the volume so that I get it loud enough to send out to, you know, whoever. And And this is, consider this a rough mix, but you know, I mean, if you're not very good and you have to mix your own stuff, this is a way to do it final. And the other way that you should be thinking of this is, if you want to finish, this is pre-mastering. Once you've got it to mastered volume, then figure out how to really fine tune it when you can hear it 99% finished. You don't want to start mastering when it's 80% finished, because you're not finished yet. But when you're finished and your volume is there, then you can start really tweaking and carving out the EQ on it. Okay, so I'm going to stop stalling and start showing. Okay, first I have the FGX. So I'm going to use this as my meter, because I don't use this to mix much. I used to use it all the time. But I love the meter on this. The meter tells me exactly what I need to know. And usually my peaks are at 0, but I tend to look for an RMS around -9 to -7. So that's what I'm going to do. So look at this meter for where my RMS is sitting. Assume that that it's hitting 0 on the peaks. And let me show you the P limiter.
I just wrote a little session up. My enemies impressed as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time. Shorty know I like it slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But
all I did was turn one knob. That's it. This is going to be a running theme. Fab Filter Pro 2L.
I just wrote a little session up. My enemies impressed as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time. Shorty know I like it slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, yeah, I'm posted.
Yep. The other one that I showed a couple weeks ago with Jonathan Weiner is Ozone is up to 9 now. I don't have Ozone 9. I only have Ozone 8. We gave Ozone 9 away with the MPS a couple weeks ago to some lucky bastard who maybe they'll let me borrow it. Okay, so Ozone has this mastering assistant function, which is fucking mind-blowing and a little bit upsetting because of how well it works. But basically what Jonathan told me is, because he helped design it, Isotope analyzed the EQ and dynamic curves of 10,000 hit records, and they logged all of those as different curves and data, and then they analyze your mix, and then they find the curves that match best with it, and then they spit out a final. So the mastering assistant, if you're a real dummy with mastering, this is the best way to get your stuff mastered, and unless you're gonna use a pro. And if you got a release that's important to you, like a single you're going to spend some money on and work, get a pro to master the shit. But everything else, the SoundCloud stuff and everything, all of these techniques are just fine. All right, here's Ozone Mastering Assistant.
I just wrote a little session up. My enemies impressed as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we got to come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time. Shorty know I like it slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, yeah, I'm posted on another night. I probably looking different. The problem with these people is they never mind their business. I probably pull a blade and something dripping like the dishes. They all up in my stress. I just wrote a little session up. My enemies impressed as they should.
Okay, 3 more. Simple L2.
I just wrote a little session up. My enemies impressed as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time.
This really is not rocket science. All I'm doing is I picked every single thing here as a 1 knob turn.
I just wrote a little session up. My enemies impressed as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time. Shorty know I like it slim thick. She fun size, ain't got no.
The master desk, and finally, last but not least, the Slate Digital that I use my metering for anyway. This is just as good as any of those others.
Stress, I just wrote a little session up. My enemies impressed as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side, so come slow.
So I'm having a wild effect on the overall level of my mix, but really what's getting me there, the thing that you need to understand is my mix was really solid before I just tried to turn it up. All I'm doing is I'm taking these things that are like finishing plugins and just doing a basic finishing to get it loud enough. But if your 808 is way too loud or your highs are too loud, then when you add this, it's not going to balance right. But then you get it to the RMS that you want, and you start A-Bing it against other plugins. You can use like the Plugin Alliance A-B metric that I showed you. Did I show you last week? I use the A-B metric to A-B between reference material. And so between A-Bing between reference material and getting with one of these plugins or something like it to a mastered volume, then you can start playing with EQ curves and stuff like that and really get into the fine-tuning of mastering your track. So hopefully that's some good stuff to show you. Oh, and let me just go through all of these. So, you know, the end point of all of this is to show you that really all of these plugins aren't terribly different from each other. And as pros, we just tend to gravitate towards what we feel most creative with and what we feel fastest with and what we feel like we can get the best results with. But the truth is none of these plugins would probably exist if you couldn't get good results with them. So, you know, learning your gear is really half the battle. All right, so let me show you the differences between all 6 of these. I think I've got them all dialed in. So I'm just going to show you the different volume curves on each one. Here we go.
Stress, I just wrote a little session up. My enemies impressed as they should be, but my best to come. And I don't mean to flex, but we gotta come and get you some. I'm posted on the north side, so come slide. I'm sipping on some big drink. It's fun time, shorty know I like them slim thick. She fun size, ain't got nothing on my wish list. But one time, yeah, I'm posted on another night. I brought a looking different. Stress, I just wrote a little session up. My enemies.
I mean, all of those are within a couple percentage of each other, and all of those were just a single turn up. So if you're thinking this is some super mystery, it is not some super mystery. On the chat roll, Daryl Smith asks, hey Ken, what is RMS? RMS is root mean squared. It's basically the easiest way to think about RMS, for me anyway, is it's your average volume. So your peak volume on anything mastered is going to be 0. All your peaks are always up to digital zeros. But your RMS is how loud it is perceived to the listener. And if you get into your RMS too high, you'll start distorting your mix bus and it'll sound like crap. If it's too low, it just won't compete with what's out there. If it's too many lows and not enough highs, and you know, you get it. So okay, so my target RMS is usually between -9 and -7 on the Slate FGX meter. So peaks will be 0. RMS will usually sit, you know, -10s on a more dynamic song, if possible. Okay, let's move on. Kolyo asks, hey Ken. Hey Kolyo. How can I get noticed by more artists and work with more people? Well, Kolyo, everybody asks the exact same question, and I used to ask it all the time too. And because the answer is different for everybody, I'm going to give you the best answer I can possibly give, and that is to make yourself valuable in however way you do that to the people that you want to reach. If you don't make yourself valuable to them in some way, if you don't have something that you have created or that you are or that you can do that they want and are willing to pay for, you know, possibly, then what do you really have? Because I guarantee you, if it's an artist you're trying to reach, everybody else is trying to reach them too. And you better bring the fucking hotness to them if you want to be the one that gets that opportunity. You got to understand, people aren't going to give you an opportunity just because you want one. You got to go and get it. And you know, for every opportunity that you try and go get, most of them you're not going to get. And it's just this, you know, it's like playing sports on a bad team, but you love to win. Like that would be the music industry, because almost every day you're waking up and some shit just goes completely off, and you know it's the clusterfuck of the music industry. But every now and then you get a big win, and the problem in perception land, especially with social media and things like that, is people like me, I don't post up my losses. I mean, that would be like an everyday thing if oh, that didn't work out. Shit, that didn't work out either. Like, that's the norm in this business. And you just got to get used to it. And you got to get used to, like, losing and picking up and moving forward. I think, who out there follows Gary Vaynerchuk? You know, he can be a little bit much at times for sure, but I fully subscribe to his general philosophy in that, like, the world doesn't owe you anything. Anybody out there trying to make it in the music business, you got to understand that nobody owes you anything. And until you have something of value to offer, they're not going to pay attention to you. So figure out, can you sing? Can you write? Can you produce? What is it? Can you mix? Can you find your value? Like Kanye West. The first time I worked with Kanye West, I was called by his manager and asked to do something that I had never done in my entire life. And I took the gig, and I told them, of course I can do that shit. Send that stuff over. I'll smash that. And I took 3 days, and I smashed that because you know, opportunities are rare. So when they come up, seize the moment. And that was a moment that I seized, and it changed my entire career. And that was, you know, I started out with Kanye with sample recreations, and that moved into production and songwriting and arranging and performance and all sorts of crazy shit. So, yeah. Speaking of, I've got a question from Ann Mincieli, or Ann is fielding a question for me. I'm going to mention her during story time as well, but I want to get to her question. So I met Ann in the 1990s, and she was an assistant at Quad Music Studios in New York City, right downtown Times Square. And she was like always the assistant that I would request anytime I was there, because she was the most badass assistant in the whole place. And, you know, if you got Ann, you knew your day was going to be really good. So, you know, then she moved on and went freelance, and I think she met Alicia Keys and started working with her in 1998, and is still working with her today. She's basically like Alicia Keys' right arm. And founded Jungle City Studios in New York City in 2011, which is like one of the best, literally best recording studios in the entire world. Every single time I have ever tried to book that, which is at least a dozen or 2 times it's been booked. So it's good that she stays busy, and she's really active with the Grammys and education and things like that. And I mean, her credits are just, if you want a humbling experience, go look at her credit list. So I fielded 2 questions for Ann. She answered both of them, but they're a little bit long, so I'm going to save one for next week. The Ann question I'm saving for next week is all about Alicia Keys. So I'm really, really sorry that I'm not playing it this week, but I will play the Alicia Keys answer next week. In the meantime, I will play you Ann's answer now. All right.
Hey everyone, it's Ann Mincieli. Happy to be here on Ken's live stream. I want to thank Ken for having me and sending me some great questions to answer from you guys. The first question comes from Kari, which she asked me, how do I still keep inspired? And that's a really good question, you know. I've been in this industry a long time. I saw the twists and turns of technology. I've been doing this since I'm 16 years old. And the one thing that's never changed is I try to be a student of the game. I try to learn every aspect of the industry, no matter what it is, whether it's audio, whether it's video, whether it's coordinating an album, whether it's understanding the business side of things. As I own several businesses or invest in several little things that are part of the industry, I really try to really explore and leave no stone unturned. And at the end of the day, I'm as hungry and as eager as I was from the first time I stepped in a studio. The studio environment is so exciting to me because you come across so many people and you get to work with artists. you're not working for the artist, you're working with them, and you're coming up with masterpieces, and you're part of album projects. And it's very exciting to me, and the depth of engineering is very exciting to me. It never leaves me uninspired. There's always something that I can learn every day, whether it's a DAW, whether it's a plugin or a piece of software, or I'm sitting with a distressor manual trying to recreate all the different compression settings that you can to mock the different compressors. So just keep, you know, trying to be inspired, and just keep, you know, trying to learn, I think is key. There are times when I'm down, or it feels like the industry is, you know, at a lull, and I've been through several twists and turns, but I always really go back to doing research and learning and studying and trying to re-inspire myself to push and learn something new. And that really gets me, you know, out of any type of feelings that I may have, you know, or struggles that I may have. And I think the industry is always, you know, going to grow. It's always going to be around. And I always find a way to be optimistic, even when I opened my own studio and people told me that I was crazy. You know, I've had a great, incredible 10-year run, and I plan to have another 10-year run with my studio, as we're just getting started. And I'm working on a lot of things to build the community as a whole. So thank you for your question. Just keep learning. Just try to keep being inspired and trying to put yourself in situations where you can grow, where you can be in an environment and a studio and learn everything from writing to producing to engineering to watching sessions, and how each producer, you know, creates, or artist creates, because there's no rules at the end of the day. So thanks for your question, Kari.
Wow. Yeah, she's great. I mean, what more can you say? That's a mic drop answer. Thank you so much, Ann. I hope you guys got as much out of that as I did. So, you know, here's something worth mentioning, because I came up in the early 90s in New York City, and have been here ever since, and Ann is the same way. And I obviously have worked with a ton of people, like assistants and interns and things like that over the years. And here's basically what I'm trying to say. I'll cut to the chase. The best interns and assistants were always the ones that made the best engineers and producers. The best engineers and the best interns and assistants were always the ones you could spot them. Usually you could spot them within an hour of them starting work, or the first hour of your session, if you were a freelance engineer and going into a session with an assistant at a studio that you hadn't worked with before. And Ann was always one of those people that you just knew, like, oh, she's going to be around for a long time. And clearly she's around, you know, big way. Okay. Thank you, Ann. And again, next week, I'm going to play one more answer from Ann that's all about Alicia Keys vocals. So you got to show up next week for that one. It's great. Okay. In other amazing people news, here's a question from my old friend Ken Van Druten. I'm going to read the question, and I'm going to hit you over the head with who Ken Van Druten is. Ken Van Druten asks, hey, Ken, analog versus digital. Do you always mix and track in the box? Do you use mic pre's and converters? Do you mix with outboard gear? Ken Van Druten and I went to Berkeley together. And I won't run down his incredible list of accolades. I'm going to have him on the show either as a Skype interview or answering questions at some point soon. But the thing that I adore him most for is he was front of house for Linkin Park. And Linkin Park is basically my favorite band. Of everything you could possibly do, that pretty much puts you way up here for me. So, Ken, to answer your question, I don't always mix in the box. I usually mix analog on my SSL any chance I can get. Sometimes if I need to work fast, or if I'm going to be traveling, I'll mix in the box. If the SSL is acting up, or, you know, whatever, sometimes I might move it into the box. If I'm rough mixing or if I'm producing, it's always in the box. Mic pre's and converters. all that stuff. I do mix with outboard gear whenever possible. Even if I'm all in the box, usually I'm trying to use my outboard Manley, Verimu, and like my Soundtech mastering EQ and certain key pieces like that I know what they sound like and I really love their sound. I also wanted to let you guys know, Ken Van Druten runs a podcast or a webcast Tuesdays, 2 p.m. called The Wrong End of the Snake on YouTube. So check that out. Okay, Lon asks, I'm not sure I can, sure, why not? Okay, I'll skip that while I'm pulling this up. Boom. Okay, Kevin and Evan Anderson ask, Kevin asks, how do you get professional studio sounding vocals using a home studio setup? Doesn't everybody want to know? And Evan Anderson asks, I mix my tracks in my bedroom with minimal acoustic treatment. My mixes end up fairly inconsistent over different devices, and they never have that professional sound. Have you got any tips for mixing in a bad room? My tips for both of you are treat your damn room. This is not rocket science. Treat your room. I'm not going to get into all the things. I think it was the last, maybe 2 shows ago, that I broke down all of the different ways in my studio in Ecuador that I had soundproofed it and made a huge difference. I took my studio in Ecuador, which was basically like a concrete box with about a 3-second reverb, and I took that all the way down to completely, almost completely dead in a very manageable room. And I just mixed the BTS interlude shadow single down in the box in Ecuador using speakers and headphones. So all of this is very possible. All of those people who are asking, like, can you get a high quality mix in the box without outboard? Yes, absolutely. You certainly can. And also, I don't know when, it's probably going to be late summer, but I'm starting to cook up an entire master course. It's going to be like really, really extensive of analog and digital. And I'm going to go through my 28 years of record making, and I'm going to take everything that I've learned about analog and digital, and I'm putting it all in one massive master course. And whenever I have time to do that, in my complete lack of spare time, I will be cranking that out. So stay tuned for that, guys. Okay, here we go with Lon's question. So a lot of you guys ask me, like, do you need plugins on every channel? Should I use an EQ on everything? Which compressor should I use on every channel? The answer is you don't. If I'm looking on screen here and I have, here's my drums. I've got very little going on. Nothing on my kicks. My 808s have a little bit. My clap snare just has a little bit of a limiter, but nothing else. I'm barely EQing anything. Look at how few plugins I have on this entire thing all the way until I get, here's a whole stretch of virtually none. This is all balancing. This is all balancing. And then when you get to the vocals, I tend to use a lot of plugins on vocals, but everything else tends to try and be balances, because anything recorded with a microphone has a chance to sound like complete shit. So whenever there's a vocal, you have all these variables that you just don't have when you're working with something else that comes out of a box already sounding pristine. So I tend to do a lot more work on vocals. But Lon's question was, hey Ken, can you talk a bit about how you deal with panning and getting a full sounding stereo mix? So panning, I don't know if this is the right one to show, but basically I tend to put most things out pretty hard left and right or in the center, but if I have a mono thing like a tambourine or something like that, then I'm trying to sweep the frequency spectrum, or I'm just trying to sweep the pan pot just to see where it feels the best. I'll try it over here, try it over there, try it over here. The same with like every element. It's really a gut check. Every single time it's a gut check. Does it sound good wide? Does it sound good left, right? There are no rules to this stuff, and there's not even a rule book. If you want wider mixes, pan things out wider. If you want more mono, powerful, centered mixes, bring your faders in a little bit. Here's Harris and Reese ask, hey Ken, how do you add grit to snares in a very 90s rap snare kind of way? It seems that crunching only gets you so far. Any tips? And Reese asks, how do you find unique sounds? This is all just a sound finding question. If you have a snare and it's not working for you, look for another snare to layer on top of it. And especially in that nowadays, I mean, my God, a splice alone probably has 1 million snare drums to go through. And, you know, sometimes it takes a little while. I think there's this idea that what we do as producers is like this super voodoo. A lot of it is spending the time to pick the right sounds, spending the time to find the magical parts instead of the part that just works in the moment. And the other thing is the experience of knowing when that's working and when that's not. So, you know, there you have it. So, man, the chat roll is on fire tonight. Hey, everybody. It's good to see you all. Let me take another one from the chat roll. DJ Chosen One. Okay, from the chat roll, DJ Chosen One asks, do you have to tune your kick to your song? No, I almost never tune the kicks. The only time I tune the kick is when the kick has a real tone to it, and I need to. Alex Laertis, just want a mixing background vocals tutorial from Audio School Online. Alex Laertis? Calling Alex Laertis. You just want a mixing background vocals tutorial from Audio School Online. That thing is 2.5 hours of action-packed, everything you need to know about panning and vocals and stacking vocals and all of that shit it's all in there, and super cheap. So check it out if you still feel like you are having a mystery with background vocals. All right. Wolfie asks, hey Ken, how is your studio acoustically treated? What can I see? From what I can see from your videos, your desk position is direct in the sloping roof. According to various studio building literature, this wouldn't be the optimal place. Do you use speaker calibration software like SonarWorks? Thanks, greetings from Austria. Greetings from Austria. Hey, Wolfie from Europe. How the hell are you? It's got to be super late there if you're tuning in. If you are, light up the chat roll, man. Let's see you. And thanks for your question. So, Wolfie, I would say every studio is different. I really don't know shit about studio treatment, but I know what my ears are telling me, and I worked this room until it just came together. And one of the blessings about, so this is like a Cape Cod style house, so the ceilings are slanted, which is great because they're not parallel. And I have this popcorn paint on them that looks horrendous, but it probably does a great job at dispersing a lot of the high frequencies. And I have insulation behind there, so that's even soaking up more sound. And then the way the roof comes down creates these natural triangular pockets behind the walls and underneath the roof that create natural bass traps. So I moved this whole setup around this room quite a bit before I got it really right. And then I did other small things to the room, but there's not really much done to this. I just really listened and then really fine-tuned my speakers and got it into a section of the room that worked well for me. But I also have carpeted floor, so there's no reflections off of the floor. I have virtually no parallel walls in here, so there's no like standing reflections and things like that. So I've gotten really lucky with this place, and I've taken this entire setup and moved it to other places, and it sounds terrible. So your environment really matters, and I would encourage you that the number one thing that you can do to improve your mixes and productions and everything is probably to get a decent listening environment. And if you can't, especially, you know, we're all locked down and shit is expensive, you know, especially, you know, sound paneling and stuff, I know. So I have a great pair of headphones that I can mix and know exactly what is happening without the room. So before, you know, so it's a balance between knowing what your speakers are telling you and knowing what your headphones are telling you, and things like that. Okay. Let's see. Jarrell asks, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry, Jarrell. I might do that next week. It's mic technique. I had it set up and then we blew it. Okay, so I think I'll do story time, then I'm going to do the giveaway. So story time was creating the big drums on Girl on Fire. This girl is on fire. Me and Dylan Wissing created those drums. Dylan was the man hitting the actual drums. I was the one capturing and fucking them up. So what we did, I got a call from Ann, because she is Alicia Keys' right arm. And incidentally, so Ann owns Jungle City Studios on the Manhattan West Side, and Alicia's studio is right next door, called The Oven, and it's a private facility just for her. So me and Dylan get this call. We need to create these drums for Girl on Fire. Jeff Basker's producing, and so anytime Ann or Jeff calls you, it's a great day. So me and Dylan go down to The Oven and set up, I think we brought like 6 kick drums and like 10 snares, and we set up 20 microphones all over the room of all different sorts, close, far, ambient, cardioid, hypercardioid, figure 8, omni, the whole works. We had everything captured. And the secret sauce, we ended up using 1 kick and 1 snare. The secret sauce on the snare drum was this, we put a small splash cymbal laying flat against the snare drum. So when you would hit the snare drum, it would have this big, like, and I don't know how to describe it, but you can hear, like, that, we would have never gotten that sound on the snare without that splash cymbal sitting on the top head of the snare drum itself. Literally loose, so you hit it and the splash cymbal moves. So we set up all those mics, captured just 2 gazillion different drum hits on all of these different kicks and snares, and then I took them back to my own studio right here for 2 days, and I just manipulated the hell out of them, and tons of EQ and distortion and compression and automation and layering and distorting the room tracks but leaving the overheads clean. Like, there was, the secret sauce on that was like mind-numbingly complicated. And that's, one thing about custom sounds is like that took 2 days to make. So I wouldn't have made them if I wasn't getting, if I wasn't hired to create them. But if you're making your own custom sounds like that, when I talk about signatures, that is a huge signature. So the culmination of that was one of the singular most memorable moments of my entire life, when Ann gives me a call, and it's like 10 o'clock at night, and it's like the day after I had turned in my work, and Ann says, hey Ken, do you have a moment to talk to somebody? And I'm like, yeah, what's up? So she hands the phone to Alicia Keys, who I had never spoken to and never met, still haven't, wish I would. And Alicia says to me, she's like, hey Ken, and I'm like, so I just have to tell you that Alicia Keys has the singular sexiest phone voice in the history of the world. So she's like, hey Ken, I love your work. It sounded so good. It was so much better than I thought it was going to come out. And I really appreciate it. And I'm just like, moments like that are so few and far between, when anybody in this industry that you're not working with on a very regular basis takes the time out of their day to like call you and acknowledge you, and it's kind of rare. So it was a super appreciated phone call. Thank you, Alicia. That meant a lot to me. So that was making the Girl on Fire drums. I don't know if you guys know any of my other back history, but I also made the big drums on Fun We Are Young. That's me, baby. And the big drums on Bruno Mars' Young Girls, and the big drums on so many songs. So yeah, we kind of, once I did the Girl on Fire drums and the We Are Young drums, I kind of got to be known as the big drums guy. So now when I need big drums, I can cook them up pretty easily. All right, so I'm going to do the giveaway now. I'm giving away a Plug-in Alliance Mega Bundle. Man, I use the shit out of Plug-in Alliance stuff. Probably my favorite is the BX Digital and the Adapter AB Metric. But there's probably 10 or 12 plugins out of that entire collection that I just go to all the time. And a lot of the Plug-in Alliance stuff, the Brainwork stuff also shows up in UAD. So I'm using a lot of the Brainwork stuff within the UAD as well. But the giveaway is for a Plug-in Alliance Here we are. Plugin Alliance Mega Bundle. All right. So one person that registered is going to win this. I'm going to keep giving away free lessons on the chat roll. I'm going to do that right now before you guys even know. Let's see. All right, I missed who won that, but whoever won that on the chat roll, pick your lesson. Let us know what you want. And I will happily give you a free tutorial from Audio School Online. I would recommend Mixing Lead Vocals is a great one, or the Classic Compressors is a beast. Okay. Where is... Here we go. Okay. So, how many people registered for this? Pooch. Pooch was the winner? What? All right, Pooch. Well, if you need to know how to mix lead vocals. All right, we had 699 people sign up for today's broadcast. So the winner is going to be 319. So 319 is Paul. Sorry, Paul, I've got a peak jab at Gmail. You just won the mega bundle. We're going to be reaching out to you and making sure you get that. Congratulations. Let me know how you think. I love that thing, man. Like, that's, one of the things that I'm trying to bring you guys with this broadcast is every week I'm just trying to reach out to somebody in plugin land that I know or that I can get to and reach out to them and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I'm giving my time away for free. So is there anything that your company can do to give these guys something for free as well? And the companies that have been stepping up are just been really fantastic. We've done giveaways from Kush, UVI, I don't want to forget anybody, Empirical Labs, Isotope, Slate, and now Plugin Alliance. So, I don't know who's next, but I'm going to get something great next. You just stay and wait. Okay, so that's the giveaway. I'm going to go to lightning round, question and answer, and see how many of these I can get through as fast as possible. Okay. Ventilated Minds gets mixing lead vocals. Okay, Ventilated Minds, make sure we can reach you or that you can reach us and get your free mixing lead vocals tutorial from Audio School Online. Enjoy that. Let me know what you think. Okay, lightning round. Jimmy Saint and Sylvian both ask a similar question. Hey, Ken, how do you get away from caring what people think in order to share your work, either with someone or on a platform like iTunes or Spotify? And then Sylvan asks, how do I get professional, impartial advice on the artistic quality of my music? So these are kind of the same answer. And the answer is basically that this is the music business. You got to grow a thick skin. Nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about me. Nobody cares about you until you give them something to care about. A hit song, a beautiful song, a vocal performance, something that's really going to grab them. And chances are, the first time you give that to them, they're not going to respond to it. I know several artists who have been signed a year down the road off the exact same stuff that they sent to the exact same executive 6 or 8 months prior, that exact same person was like, nah, they're not ready. And, a year later, they're in a bidding war being signed. So you gotta understand in this business that there's another question around here that I wanted to address the exact same issue. Here we go. So I'll just read this question because it's pertinent to this whole discussion. George asks, how do I talk to industry professionals about my music without having a record deal and a huge following? So you guys, I understand the frustration of wanting people to hear what you're creating so badly and you loving it so much, but most of you are trying to get out of the gate too fast. You create something and you love it, so you want to put it right out, but you're not ready to put it out. You're not ready at all. So, if you just want to start putting your stuff out just for people to hear, then that's great. If you want to start putting yourself out with the purpose of building a fan base and a following and getting real Spotify streams and things like that, then you've got to be much more curated with what you put out and how. You can't just put everything out. You got to really work until you have that one thing that's like a holy shit song. Find your holy shit song and then put that out and work it really hard. And while you're working that song, you know, take 6-8 weeks and cook up another one that's even stronger, and then put that one out 8 weeks later. And if you get it in a perpetual cycle of putting out something great every 6 or 8 weeks, and you do it consistently, eventually people are going to catch, and people are going to wake up, hopefully. It's what Russ did. The artist Russ, I think he put out one song a week for like 52 weeks straight, and his starting numbers were nothing, and his finishing numbers were amazing. He is caking now. So a lot of it is consistency, and a lot of it is not getting out of the gate too quickly. And look, if you are so paralyzed by what other people think of your work in this business, you're going to have a tough go of it. You just got to get past that. I mean, nobody's going to like the shit that you have until everybody else likes it. The same exact thing. You just got to take my word for it. You can't take people's negative criticisms for anything. It's just, you know, you got to take them for what they're worth to you and try and grow. But anytime somebody critiques something from me, I try and take from it what connects with me, and then I grow from that. Or I just be like, no, I don't really agree with that. And, you know, it doesn't have to be. Okay, back to the lightning round. This isn't so much lightning. Matt asks, hey, Ken, how do you go from producing a hit record every 100 beats to producing them much more often? It's kind of the same thing, Matt. If you produce a record every 100 beats, you're doing really well. A hit record is a super high bar. Even a record, you know, 1 million streams on Spotify is a super high bar. Even, you know, and that's completely doable, but difficult. So what I would say is, if you get a hit every 100, your batting average is incredible, and just try and improve from there. Avery asks, how do you start promoting a new record? The release strategy I just laid out, every 6 to 8 weeks, try and put out a new record. You know, I'm not a promotion guy, so I can't really tell you how to promote it, but I can tell you how to release them. This is a multiple people asking. Ethan DeFriedis, Boney, and Alain Emmanuel ask, hey Ken, how do I get you to mix and master my music? And how much do you charge to mix a song? So I do mix for independent artists all the time. I'm not going to quote my rates here because rates change, and I don't quote my indie rate live, or majors would never pay me my rate again. So my website is, my mixing website is iproducemusic.com. I know it's a little bit of a misnomer, but that's where I do my mixing work too. So iproducemusic.com is my mixing site if you want to hire me to mix. I'm not going to give you a free mix, and I don't have time to critique. I'm doing a free show every week. So this is all the time that I have for free stuff. But I do this for a living, so get at me. Dawson asks, Ken, if your setup was all in the box and you could splurge on one piece of analog gear, what would it be? Dawson, I would suggest either great speakers or great headphones. You have to know what you're listening to first. If you know that, then the plugins will feel much easier under your fingers because it'll be easier to get the results that you can trust. Okay. Chris asks, hey, Ken, how do I make frequencies relate to each other musically in terms of mixing? Chris, you're asking the wrong question. I don't listen to frequencies. I think I said this earlier. I don't listen to frequencies or ratios or numbers or math. I listen to notes and music and melodies and rhythms and lyrics and song structure, and I listen for emotion, and that's what I'm trying to bring out as a mixer. So I'm always asking, what does the song need? I listen to the song, and I'm asking the song to tell me what I need to change about it, which is a completely different question than asking something like, does my kick drum have enough 100 hertz? I don't know. I don't even know if the kick drum is centered around 100. Who fucking knows? So, okay. So ask the right questions first. Let's see. Where am I? Here we go. Coco asks, hey, Ken, what would you say to someone who produces and masters his or her own music? Is it possible to stay objective about the work, even if it's your own? Coco, I would say it's really difficult, especially at first. It's something that took me a really long time to be able to get over, being able to mix and master, and the stuff that I'm also writing and producing. But eventually you get better at it, and if you take your time and you live with your mixes over the course of a few days and you reference in multiple places, you can kind of, I think, will help you lock in. Certain artists do it all the time, like Lov. Lov records and mixes all of his own songs, and he clearly writes and performs them all as well. Really brilliant artist. So you can too. I'm not going to say any names tonight, but I want to give a super, super big shout out to the control room tonight that's running everything behind the scenes here. I'm losing my partner that helped me found this whole broadcast. And he's been quarantined with us since mid-March. And this was all, none of this was supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to be doing a live Q&A. This was all because of the quarantine. We all got locked down, and he was locked down here with us, and stuck here for a couple months, and we were like, well, we're not going out. What do we do? And I have all this broadcast gear, and I was like, all right, let's do a broadcast. So we're losing him tonight. It's going to be a huge blow to the show, but he's going to try and work with us remotely, and keep the quality of the broadcast up. And my wife Lori has been the other one helping out with the broadcast, and she's been indispensable. The cool thing about Lori is we've been married since like the dawn of time, and she's never asked me if she could mix anything, and she's been watching me do these sprint mixes, and she's like, those sprint mixes look really fun, could I try it one time? And I was like, fuck yeah, of course you can. So I set up a sprint mix on like level 2 for her, and she aced that in like 6 minutes, and she was done. So I gave her level 3, and the first one she did in 10, and it was really good, but she was unsure of a couple things, and her second run through on level 3 was like fucking money. And then so now she's up to level 4 on the sprint mixing, and she's loving it and having a blast. You're gonna see me do the sprint mixes in a couple minutes. Actually, I'm gonna get to them pretty soon. But sprint mixes is all mostly about balances and things like that. Again, back to the control room. This show wouldn't exist without the people in the control room working their asses off every single week. We put a lot into this and really try and bring you guys something great. So please spread the word. Tell your friends. Anybody that you think might actually enjoy the program, please spread the word. That's how we grow. Okay, where am I up to? SJ asks, what's the simplest thing I can do from my home studio to create a polish on a track before uploading to streaming services? I think I showed that earlier with the Ozone, or any of those plugins really. But the Ozone actually will do a little bit more than just straight volume. So, okay, all these guys, all these multiple questions were covered with the pre-mastering demonstration. Okay. Here we go. Randy. Hey, Randy. Randy asks, hey, Ken, what's your best advice for upcoming producers to have a quality sound that have a quality sound but haven't yet gotten huge placement? Okay. You could do a few things. You can find a great local artist and start collaborating with them. Maybe if you guys click really well and you feel like you're making magic together, then, you get into a contractual relationship, you build a project, and you try and get them a record deal. I've gotten several artists signed in my career. Might be doing it again soon. So that's one way and you got to understand, if you develop an artist yourself, it's going to do several things for you. It's going to let you practice like crazy with somebody who isn't really going to penalize you when you make those big mistakes, because they're like basically your collaborator. And the two of you can build together over time. So that's my main suggestion. Okay, Sama asks, how do we know if we've written a good song or if it's actually a bad song that we just can't see it? I would say put it away for a day or a week and then come back to it and give it a new listen, and usually you'll have a better idea if it sucks or not. Matthew Torres asks off the chat roll, what if I want to intern for this live show? We may have to talk, Matthew. I'm not really sure. it's certainly a hell of a lot of work. So, all right, Dylan asks, I'm learning so much at school for audio engineering, I feel like I don't have time to absorb anything. I know the feeling, Dylan. Do you have any tricks or tips for things to learn on the side that will metaphorically pour jet fuel on the fire that is my learning process? Dylan, I can. So back in the 90s, when I was a staff engineer and staff assistant at Soundtrack Recording Studios in Manhattan, I used to have a spiral notebook, like an inch-thick spiral notebook, and I carried that everywhere. And on the subway ride into the city or to the studio and home from the studio, I would go through my notebook, and during the sessions, I would make notes on anything that the engineer or the mixer or the producer or the artist did that I was like, whoa, oh, I need to remember that. And I would write that down, and I would describe it as much as possible so that I could recall exactly what it was later. And then on the subway, I would go through all of my notes on the trip home, and on the next morning in, I would go through my notes again, and it was a great way to really absorb a lot of these techniques. And then I could ask the big-time engineers that were coming in, like Tony Maserati, when he would come in, then I would have questions ready for him, and he would be my Q&A. So let's see, a couple more, and then I'm going to go to the Sprint mix. Let's go to the chat roll. You guys have been great tonight. Mike Sick asks, do you boost fundamental frequencies in tracks, particularly vocals, or cut around them? Mike, that would require me to think about frequencies. And if you were here on the broadcast 4 minutes ago, you know how I feel about that. So I don't think about fundamental frequencies. I just ask myself, is the vocal clear enough? Is it, what does the vocal need? What does the song need? What does the vocal need? I don't think in frequencies. Ron asks, Fab Filter Pro 2L versus Waves L2. No contest at all. Fab Filter Pro 2 Pro L2. I use Waves. I don't use Waves on the mix bus ever, but you can. I mean, it's it's a idiot slider box and it does things. But I use it on individual channels a lot when I just need a quick dumb limiter to kind of put something at a set level and leave it there. So the Waves L2 definitely has a great place in your plugin list. Let's see. Gordito asks, how do you, from the chat roll, how do you thicken thin vocals? Gordito, I did this earlier. So if you watch the rebroadcast early on, I took a Vonnie Hype Main and I showed the 3 different ranges of vocal EQ, low, mid, high, and I described all of them. So please catch the rebroadcast, and that's all in there. All right, I'm going to take a couple more from the chat roll, and while I'm setting up this Sprint mix. Thank you, everybody else. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out tonight. It's been a really good show. I feel good. Where's Sugar Jesus Sprint mix? Temptation. You little. Okay. Insight Auto asks from the chat roll, hey, Ken, can you share what kind of headphones you have? These things are, I don't know if you can see them. They're Audis. They're closed back Audis LCD XCs. They're really fucking expensive, but they're like having incredible speakers, and they totally take the room out of here. They're ginormous, and you wouldn't want to wear them for long stretches at a time, but to mix with, they're like better than my speakers. It's crazy how accurate and detailed and clear, and the subs on them are just. It's the only headphones that will carry like accurate 808s, I think, at least down that far. Okay, a couple more from the chat roll, and then I'm going to Sprint mix here. Rory Miller asks, what do you recommend for computer specs? Man, I pay people for that. I don't really know. Sorry, Rory, I don't know. Fast. Whenever I get a new computer, I basically get the fastest shit that I can possibly get, with SSD drives and the whole works, so that I don't have to worry about investing in a new computer for a really long time. Okay, from the chat, Bolo asks, what are the differences between New York and LA when it comes to work in this industry? Well, New York is pretty much dried up. Everybody moved to LA. I'm still in New York because I always have work, so I don't need to relocate to a better place to keep my work going, but I can guarantee you without a shadow of a doubt that if I was in LA and there was no COVID-19, that I would be racking up more credits and I would be more successful in major label land, because that's where all the major labels operate now. New York is still, it's happening, but it ain't like LA. LA's the place. So, okay. Wow. It's 9:30. Jeez, time flies, people. Okay, I'm going to go to the Sprint Mix. So I'm going to talk about Sprint Mixes a little bit because I have some of these at my school, Audio School Online. But this year I'm going to start putting up just a ton of Sprint Mixes. All of these ones that I'm doing here, you guys are going to have access to as well. And I think these are super fun and are my singular best mixing teaching tools if you use them as intended. So the Sprint Mixes, I took a song that I probably spent, this one, Temptation, I probably spent 5 or 6 or 7 hours mixing it. It was a good 70, 80 track mix. Really detailed, really complicated, and then I stemmed it out to about 30 tracks. So the stems are already kind of mixed, and originally if you would just put the stems at 0, it would have been my mix. But then I had my assistant take all of the stems and randomize the volumes on all of them. So what you definitely won't see is faders all the way across. And I have no idea what the randomization is. So I have 10 minutes from faders down to create a finished mix out of about 25 or 30 stems. I don't know how many this has. And that means that I have to make a final decision per track about every 30 seconds. So every 20 to 30 seconds is the allotment of time that I have to decide every single sound's place in this entire mix, start to finish, on what is already a 3-minute song. So this is a real challenge. But so why sprint mixing? Okay. I'm not trying to do a final finished mix. This is not the point. The point of sprint mixing is a fewfold. It's to build your instincts. It's to make you stop thinking so much about the technology and start thinking more about the things I'm always talking about: music, notes, melodies, rhythms, things like that, and stop thinking so much about plugins and ratios and frequencies and shit like that. And it gives you a steps, like I have these sprint mixes in 6 different levels. So you start at level 1 or 2 or 3 or wherever you're comfortable with. And I guarantee you, by the time you can do a Jedi mix the way I can do a Jedi mix, your mixing skills are going to be fucking a lot better. And, I think it's the fastest way to get better at mixing, bar none. So this is Sugar Jesus featuring KRN. You can catch Sugar Jesus on Spotify as well, just exactly like it sounds. So this is Sugar Jesus featuring KRN. This is called Temptation. So 10 minutes on the clock, and I'm going to wrap up the night with a sprint mix. Thank you, everybody on the chat roll, for hanging out. I'm going to give away one more. Hans Groover, you want a tutorial? Let's give you classic compressors. Hans Groover, you just won the Audio School Online Classic Compressors tutorial. Reach out to us and get that. That's a fucking mean one, too. You'll love it. Okay, sprint mix. Time to arm up. 10 minutes on the clock. Go. Thanks for hanging out tonight, everybody. Had a great night.
to be there to feel me get inside your head, hold you over the edge. You won't ever forget. I'm gonna heal you, steal you away from yourself, put you under my spell, got you under my spell. Want you to be there to feel me get inside your head, hold you over the edge. You won't ever forget. I'm gonna heal you, steal you away from yourself, put you under my spell, got you under my spell. Want you to be there to feel me get inside your head, hold you over the follow me. I've been flowing through your dreams. Give me what I need, your devotion endlessly. Want you to be there. Come out, follow me. I've been flowing through your dreams. Give me what I need.
Temptation, you belong to me. Temptation, give your love to me. Let me be the air you breathe. Temptation, you belong to me. Temptation, give your love to me. Let me be the air you breathe. Temptation, you belong to me. Temptation, give your love to me. Let me be the air you breathe. Temptation, you belong to me.
Want you to be there to feel me get inside your head, hold you over the edge. You won't ever forget. I'm gonna heal you, steal you away from yourself, put you under my spell, got you under my spell. Want you to be there to
Temptation, love to me. Let me be the air you breathe. Temptation, you belong to me. Let me be the air you breathe.
come and follow me. Sing. Once you come, you never leave. Want you to be. Feel me get inside your head, hold you over the edge. You won't ever forget. I'm gonna heal you, steal you away from yourself, put you under my spell, got you under my spell. Come and follow me. Let me be the Once you kept, you never leave. Want you to be there to feel me get inside your head, hold you over the edge. You won't never forget. I'm gonna heal you, steal you away from yourself, put you under my spell, got you under my spell.
Temptation, give your love to me. Let me be the air you breathe. Temptation, you belong to me. Let me be the air you breathe.
My spell, my spell. Give me what I need.
Woo! Woo! All right. That's it. Sugar Jesus, Temptation, featuring KRN. It's Ken Lewis, mixing night, live Q&A. Thank you all, everybody in the chat roll. Hey, Jamal Aaron won that last tutorial. Reach out to us, Jamal. Had a great show tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out. We'll let you ride out with the mix of Sugar Jesus. See you next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m., New York City time. Come join us again.
Come and follow me. Let me be the air you breathe. I'm your fantasy. Once you kept, you never leave. Want you to be